Good evening. Keeps up the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and I'm joined as always. Oh no, he's not here. I don't know where Rob is, guys. He is missing in action. I'm gonna guess that Rob's an old man and he is taking a nap and he did not wake up. So right now it's just me and Otaku hanging out. We're gonna get through this together and have a whole lot of fun while we're doing it. And maybe Rob will wake up, get his 40 winks in, and join us during the show. Who knows? It's a mystery. But before we get going, Otaku, how are you tonight, sir? We're going to make you big because you are our focus of the evening, sir.
I'm doing great, and it's really exciting to be on this show. Yeah, I know you feature a lot of great collectors in the community, so it's just an honor to be part of that conversation. So thank you.
Oh, well, it's actually our honor to have you on. This is the most fun thing I love about this show is that everything that everybody brings on, you get some really individualistic books which you don't see anyone else bring on. It's always a lot of fun. You get to learn a little bit more about the collector. Um, but before we get going, and before we say hi to the chat, uh, give a little bit about who you are and what your channel is for those catching on the rewind who don't know you. And for everyone out there, his link is in the description below. Please give him a follow and check out this gentleman's stuff. So, Otaku, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so my channel is called Otaku Tour Guide, and Otaku just stands for geek in Japanese. And I started collecting when I was a little kid, all the way through college, and then I stopped collecting in 1997. And then just right around the pandemic, I guess everybody was stuck at home and started, getting back into comic book collecting. A lot of people did, and I was one of those individuals as well. Fell really deep into the deep end of getting back into collecting. And so I love everything Jim Lee, Neil Adams, John Byrne, the books I was collecting as a kid. So a lot of Copper Age, a lot of early 90s books. And yeah, just, taking people on my comic journey. So I love picking up books for cheap. That's kind of my strategy. I'm not looking to spend a lot on books. And I've been able to pick up a lot of really key books and finds, sticking with that strategy. So it's been working for me, and I just hope that continues as I, keep collecting into the next 20, 30 years, however long.
Nice. Well, yeah, and it looks like you already got a good collection going behind you because I was looking at the books you had stacked back there. So I'm going to be real interested in seeing what you bring tonight. But before we get going, let's say hi to our chat. And we have Las Cruces in, of course. Good evening, Las Cruces. Oh, and we do have a co-host that has joined us. And seeing Rob is probably catching his 40 winks, I had to reach out to someone that you're good friends with. Welcome in his co-hosting debut on the 1011, Naman.
Oh,
Hey,
what's up, yeah?
we couldn't have
Uh,
planned this any better, right?
you're right. Warlord, good evening. Psychedelic Naman, we're just saying hi to the chat real quick, and then we're getting going on his books. Thank you for joining us, Naman.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
Ryan. Hey, look
Yeah,
who's here.
I need to
Naman.
be a
Feels like
co-host for my
home.
bro.
It feels like
Yeah,
home.
I had to. I'm like, well, Rob's not here. I know the perfect guy to reach out to. Right. How you doing tonight, Matthew?
What's up,
Marcus, good
Matt?
evening, sir.
Sweet.
Jerry the Jitterbug, good evening, buddy.
Okay.
If you guys aren't catching Jerry
Jerry,
the
what's up?
Jitterbug shorts, go to his channel, check out his shorts. A bunch of golden age goodness in his shorts
Oh
with
yeah.
some fun facts. So go check out Jerry's shorts. They are fantastic. All right, we have Brian LCS. I already said hi
What's
to
up,
Seth.
Brian?
Switch Comics, good evening. Sleepy Reader, how are you, sir?
Damien?
I love Disney and Comics, good evening. And we are getting caught up. All right, I think we are there. So for now, let's go back over to you, the focus of our show. So I've been waiting for this because my plan was to get you and Naman in on this show within a month's time. and I kind of had an idea what Namin would bring, although he threw a few curveballs my way. I have no idea what you're going to bring, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah.
So let's
Okay.
lead up with your first book.
All right. My first book is Green Lantern number 85. And this is a very key issue, as everybody knows. Um, it's a great Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, the classic team up of them on this really award winning issue. So, this is not the original copy, it's a facsimile. And but the reason it's so special to me, my collection is so special to me, is because it was gifted to me by a very beloved and amazing community member. Many of you probably know her, but if you don't, please go check her channel out and give her a follow and like. Shout out to Silver Haired Bronze Age Babe, or Shabab.
She's
Again,
great.
she's amazing. Yeah.
She's responsible for my Lady Cop obsession.
Right? She's so influential. Like,
I joined the Lady Cup myself.
yeah, I mean, Namyeon Hyung, you got into like wedding covers, right? Or
well,
was
yeah,
influenced?
well, she was a big influence because she showed me all the wedding covers. That's
Right.
my collection. So
Right. So again, she's just incredibly warm, passionate, and knowledgeable about comics. And the fact that she, came on, watched a video where I, featured my Neil Adams collection and how I expressed wanting to pick up more books. She was able to send a few books from her collection by Neil Adams, a lot of sort of late silver, early Bronze Age books. And this copy here, I don't know if you can see, is actually signed by Neil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right there. It's in silver, so it doesn't really come out, but it's signed by him. And again, just one of the best books in my collection. I had to feature it today on the 1011 signed copy.
Only way Green Arrow should look. None of that mini Batman look like on the CW.
Yeah.
Always gotta have the blonde hair, the little beard, and the mustache. That's my Green Lantern. I mean, my Green Arrow.
Yep. That's a great Green Arrow. Grell's what I grew up reading. So great issue there.
So is that only Neil Adams book that's been signed?
I have another Neil Adams book that's signed, but this one again is just special to me because it came from the community, and this is always a book I've been wanting to get, and having a signed copy just feels really good.
The community's awesome. The community always provides. It's amazing, right? Like, you didn't know there was people like that until you're in this community, and they're like, oh, it's just not all a bunch of candy coated bastards with bastard fillings. There's good people out there.
Oh yeah. It's I think for you to be into comic books, it says a lot about just what you're, because the stories in here, the stories that are in here, they inspire people, and so that says a lot to the people that subscribe and buy comic books. If you're reading them, you're part of a tight knit group that understands, like, these books give you more than just stories. They give you hope and teach you a lot of lessons.
Right. Well, there's always something to aspire to, right? That's why we get into them and love them. Right. All right, number 2, sir. Good first pick.
So my list, I'm hoping to kind of segue into the next book. So speaking of artists that we love, I am the self-proclaimed biggest Jim Lee fan on social media. And my next book,
never heard of him. No, just kidding.
So speaking of Neil Adams, and this is a book here. It's called Wildcats X-Men. This book came out in 1997 as the sort of comic boom of the 90s was ending, and it's a crossover between Wildstorm's Wildcats and Marvel's X-Men.
Wow, cool.
And what makes this book very special to me is, aside from the fact that it's the first collaboration between two artists that I collect, Neil Adams and Jim Lee. Um, Neil did the cover for this particular issue, and Jim Lee did the interior art. Aside from it being sort of their first official collaboration, this book I got the day the news of Neil's passing came out, and
Oh wow.
yeah, it's really interesting because the news broke and I saw it on social media, and I was on my way to the bookstore, and during my hunt I found this book, and I was like, you know what, we're gonna pick it up. And it's a book I really just love, again because it was sort of I speak to unmyeong, which is a Korean word for fate or destiny, and really it applies to anybody who does long box hunting. You never know what you're going to find, right?
Right.
You go in with a goal of what to look for, but you oftentimes end up finding things that you connect with.
Right. And you're
Um,
trying to get that long box lotto, right? You're trying to find that gem that everybody missed, but's there for you.
yeah, and that's the way it felt with this particular copy. When I saw it, I was like, I got to get this book. It's speaking to me. It's like it was like Neil speaking to me in a lot of ways. Just the fact that this beautiful comic book, this cover that he did, would make its way into my presence. So I was just happy to pick it up. Um, Again, it's one of those crossovers. If you were collecting in the '90s, you would understand what Wildcats means to the '90s collector, as well as X-Men. So these are two of the biggest teams.
Right. I mean, they
I
had their
was,
own cartoon. They had their own comic based on their cartoon. Wildcats was really big.
it was big, yeah, and it's still in DC. It's like been integrated into DC continuity. So who knows? We could see more Wildcats
Well, a new
introduced.
series just started,
Yeah, yep.
and
For
my
all of them,
buddy's a
like
big Grifter
Grifter.
fan.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had a Jim Lee Grifter cover here, a Wildcats one, which I just gifted him. I'm like, here, dude, you're a Grifter fan, take it, and it's a great cover, But in the classic Jim Lee '90s dynamic poses, just
Yeah,
everything screams like everything's about to break loose and go to hell, right?
yeah. And
But
really, that the Grifter's like character design, the fact that he has this handkerchief as like his mask, that was just like the coolest thing. It was just like he had this like bandana, like half ripped bandana as his mask.
well,
And
yeah,
that,
just something out of the norm, but it was
yeah,
visually striking.
yeah, yeah.
Well, because Jim Lee was like, Rob Liefeld stole pouches. I need something else. He took pouches and big guns. I guess half mass or me.
I want everybody to know my partner here. I was gonna go with I'm the number one Jim Lee fan, and he stole that thunder from me. So that's just letting you know, and that's a fate too.
Yeah. We can share that. We can share them. Again, I'm self-proclaimed. Anybody can challenge me on the self-proclamation, but
No, but
No,
now
I'm not gonna challenge
but
it.
now that that's out there, what you and Naman need is to do a show together where you each show your top 10 Jim Lee covers and see how many you have in
oh,
common.
we could do that. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, I think he's gonna win.
No, it's just your favorites to see if you guys match any.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
not a
know a couple of
competition.
ours
It's
will
just for
match.
fun.
I know
Yeah.
a couple of ours will match.
Oh, all right. All right, number 3.
All right, number 3. So speaking of Jim Lee, we have the best-selling comic book of all time, and that is his work on X-Men Volume 2, number 1.
Man,
This came
X-Men
out.
was so good then.
Yeah, I mean, what can you in 1991? Was there anything bigger in comic books than this connecting cover
And I
book?
remember waiting for that to come out. I got all the connecting covers plus the one cover that folded out and had all the covers like as one panoramic view.
Yep, yep. Now, again, this particular cover is special to me because it's has a 90s signature by Jim Lee, but it also has a Stan Lee signature right there on
Ooh.
Gambit's arm.
No,
Yeah.
there's a double signature. That's a wowzer.
Yeah, it's a double signature by the Lees, right? And I'm sure everybody in the audience here has watched Stan Lee's YouTube video series called The Comic Book Greats. It's a video series that came out around the early 90s.
It was fun.
That featured a lot of the young talents at Marvel, as well as some of the veteran comic book legends. But the one where Jim Lee comes on is just a real treat. Absolutely a treat for any Stan Lee and Jim Lee fan. The two are interacting and they talk about this book and its record-defying feats. And so that video comes to mind every time I look at this particular copy where it's signed, and just a special connection between those two. And again, happy to have this book as sort of a commemoration of that moment.
Now, see, I need to point this out, Otaku. You cannot mention X-Men in a stream and then Lady Fantastic shows up. She was probably in a dead sleep and she heard X-Men in the back of her mind.
She's there.
She's here, yeah.
Cyclops.
Yeah, Cyclops is her main.
No,
I'm gonna get a whole bunch of hate messages on IG for that now. Good evening, Caroline. All right, number 4, bud.
Before I do have a question about that book.
Oh, go ahead. When's he A-okay in it to you?
No. That's it. That's it. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
This reminds me that Jim Lee and Stan Lee, they worked on a book together. Jim Lee worked on a art and Stan Lee worked on a story when he was employed at DC. Would it be? I don't know if there's a copy out there where both of them signed those books.
That would be interesting. Yeah,
it'd be really cool to get.
That would.
I'm gonna have to search for it.
Yeah, we'll have to search for it. I'm just wondering if there's a collector who had the foresight to get both signatures, because it's not that it would have been terribly difficult back in the day, but that would be interesting. Yeah.
Now, Otaku, I also see that you're not against slabs. Is that something you thought about sending away for signature verification at CBCS?
I probably, so at some point I have a lot of signature books in my collection, and I think at some point I am going to send a few of them away, including this one, to CBCS. But I still have books being graded right now, so I kind of want to wait to get all the books back before I send more in.
That's what I did, and it took a year before my books came back. So now I'm just getting more together to send out again. I'm like, will it be another year? Who knows?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's they've caught up a little bit and it's not as long.
True.
Because when I first started sending out, I was getting them back in 3-4 months, and then all of a sudden it was a year.
Yeah. I think they've improved the lead times a little bit, but on the older books, they're still pretty long. So that's really what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting on some of the earlier books to come back.
All right, number 4, sir.
All right, number 4. So speaking of Stan Lee, we have another book signed by Stan Lee, and that is The Web of Spider-Man, number 4. And this is a beautiful cover by John Byrne on an early issue of this run by Greg LaRocque, who did the interiors on this. And this is special because, again, this is special. That was my wife, sorry. This is special because it was signed by Stan. And you had, Nick from Comic Culture as the previous, hey, Rob, what's up?
Sorry.
You had Nick from Comic Culture speak to, signing events where Stan was forced to sign for hours, and how, it kind of takes a toll on someone, an older adult like like Stan was when he was doing these events. Fortunately, this is not one of those books. Although this was signed in 2017, it was signed at not a comic event, but Experimental Aircraft Association event in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Wow.
Um,
How odd.
so yeah. So did you know that Stan Lee was an aviation enthusiast?
No.
He was. His foundation partnered with the EAA Air Venture, and again, he attended this event because his foundation was involved in, training pilots and getting people into aviation, young people into aviation. And again, he attended this event. He did signings for comic books, and the person I got this book from was at the event and got it signed by him, and it's just a beautiful, like, vibrant Stan signature there. Love the placement. It's just a big. You could just tell, like, there's video of him speaking at this event, and he was just so, he was just so happy. He's smiling. He's cracking jokes to the audience. The audience is enamored with his presence. And it was just beautiful weather for an aviation event. So this is just a special book from that day. And yeah, I love the cover. I love Doc Ock covers. I love Spider-Man covers.
And a great book. And there was a question from the audience, from Psychedelic. He wanted to know, what year did you start collecting?
I started collecting in 1984. Yeah. And I kind of got out of collecting in 97 after I graduated college and started, like, adulthood. Comic books weren't a priority at that stage in life. But then, when the pandemic hit, I got some books back from my parents, and they just got, I was like, let's get some of these slabbed, and just got me back. I got the collecting juices flowing again.
So having to pay for your own rent, pay for your own food, that type of thing became a priority for you, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, basically.
Well, adulting sucks, right?
Right. Well, until you become adult, you've done adulting enough to accumulate the ability of the magical world of disposable income.
Yeah. Disposable income, it plays a huge part into whether you can, buy books or not.
All right. Number 5, Otaku.
All right. So that Web of Spider-Man series, as I mentioned, was, the interior work was done by Greg LaRocque. And Greg LaRocque was someone who came on Namian Hyung and on my channel, our feature of Meet the Artist. He came on our show. We interviewed him. It was such a treat to meet and talk to Greg LaRocque. Again, this Web of Spider-Man series was one of, like, the books I read growing up.
Same here. I read that. Spectacular and amazing. Like, I didn't miss any of them. They were all great.
Yeah, they were all great.
Until the maximum clonage.
Yeah. So speaking of Web of Spider-Man, we have this issue of Web of Spider-Man issue 2. And this is special because it was signed by Greg LaRocque, and it was gifted to me by none other than Namian Hyung. So it's fortuitous that he's in this this panel here.
Now I'm embarrassed.
This is a book from Comic Book Worm, and again, it was part of some of the books that Greg sent to us after that interview. And so this just holds a lot of meaning to me because it's from Namian Hyung, and also it's from Mr. LaRocque. So that's just a great cover there by Mr. LaRocque as well.
Yeah. And I don't know, whenever you have a Spider-Man swinging through the city cover, it's always a classic.
Yeah.
You see any other hero on a cover swinging, you're like, you're not Spider-Man, dude. Cut it out.
Yeah, it's Spider-Man at, like around this time, it was like one of the more sort of dynamic, most popular books coming out of Marvel at the time. So I think there were like 4 titles. So
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong, right? 4 titles of Spider-Man. And the Amazing Spider-Man also was, or no, the new Spider-Man series in the 90s was coming out like twice a month. That was like the first for a book as well. It was like coming out
And
on
back
a
then, when I
bi-weekly
was reading all of
basis.
them, I could never understand why Spectacular and Web didn't get the same acclaim as Amazing, because there was great stories going on in all of them.
Right.
It's still that way. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but just because it's
gives you
amazing,
gives you something to collect.
right?
True.
But I mean, with all that's out too. I mean, that's the main reason I never got back into any of the main characters of either company, right? Because they're just so in every issue now. There's not enough money to collect them. If you're a Batman collector, you need to be as rich as Bruce Wayne to get all the titles he has out every week.
Yeah.
And if you're a Spider-Man collector, if you're as poor as Peter Parker, you probably can't get the one.
Yeah. Like really, when we talk about like the comic book industry and its health, we're talking about these like legacy characters and how popular there are. And so when like comic books will always be around, but I think what people collect could change over time, and that's kind of sad to see, like to know that. I mean, obviously DC's putting a lot of focus on its legacy characters. They're saying Superman is, we're going to put the emphasis back on Superman, which I think they should have kept doing. They should have kept that as
Right.
part of the strategy from the beginning, right?
He's one of your
Like,
holy trinity.
yeah, exactly. But it's good to see, these the visionaries there.
Well, there's no reason for us not to switch away. I mean, the reality is that the superhero comics came into strength in the '60s. So prior to that, it was a whole bunch of different topics. So there's no reason to think that at some point they couldn't, people get tired of the superhero, especially as potentially they speed it along by churning out superhero movies and TV show and everything else, that people just become a little fatigued. And I think we're even seeing a little of it now. But you could see that, and then you're going to continue to grow other types of stories or
Yeah.
push people to explore other types of stories, and that could help to grow and spread that out. Where maybe one day, not too far from now, superheroes aren't the dominant force in comic books, or aren't as dominant.
Yeah.
Where we can get into the weird sci-fi and horror and get into those topics and just some.
Absolutely.
We could do that at some point. Yeah.
Now I'm waiting for the homage covers to start coming out because he had that famous panel of Batman slapping Robin, which is on every meme. But what I've been waiting to see in the comic books is them homaging the Will Smith slap of Chris Rock on the
Oh
cover.
yeah.
Like they really need to do a Batman slapping Robin or Nightwing like that on the cover. Like they're missing an opportunity there.
I'm surprised. Yeah, that
Right,
hasn't
yeah,
come
you're right,
out.
yeah.
That would have been a great opportunity to do that. I'm sure
Yeah.
someone's listening to this now and drawing the
There's your
cover
next
as we
commission,
speak.
Gary.
Like Robin says something bad about Alfred, and Batman's like, "Keep Alfred's name out of your mouth."
Everybody hear it here. Gary come up with it first.
Yeah,
So-
Gary. When we see the cover, we'll
I mean,
we'll link
doesn't
Gary
it seem
to
like a natural fit for comics?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Awesome
Such a-
homage. Awesome. But maybe it's too sensitive for now. Maybe a little too early.
That's what indie comics are for. You don't have to worry about sensitivity.
Or
All
people.
right, number 6, Otaku.
All right. So speaking of Greg LaRocque, this also came in the AOK from Namyan Hyung,
Ooh.
which is a sketchbook.
That's amazing
Of-
sketchbook.
Mr. LaRocque with Daredevil on the cover, and he also signed this as well. And there's just a lot of sort of black and white sketch prints in here, just beautiful characterization work, and a great, collector's items for anybody who loves and appreciates Greg LaRocque's work.
He was kind enough to send us those books, one each. So
Yeah, Damian Hyung, why don't you talk to, you actually met him at Baltimore Con this year. Just can you speak to a little to what that interaction was like?
oh, it was an awesome experience. I mean, we're just like buddies at the con. I got to sit on his booth. Someone asked me if I was Greg LaRoque when he went to get he went to the restroom. I said, yeah, sure. Let me show you something. So, it was really fun. He gave me some free prints. Let me see if I can show it.
Yeah, he actually did some original artwork for Namen Hyung.
Nice.
Yeah,
Hold on, I'll make you big, Namen, real quick.
so
Oh wow.
that's this is I commissioned it, but he gave me this print for free. You know, the Greg LaRoque is a fun fact. He's a little bit colorblind, so somebody else has to color these things. But
I can relate to that. I am also colorblind.
yeah,
As am I.
I'm not sorry.
go back to
I'm just practically
go back
blind.
to my bro, please.
Right? All right, nice. All right, so
All right. Yeah.
number 7.
It's number 7. So speaking of Greg LaRoque covers, we have this, or sorry, speaking of Daredevil covers, we have this beautiful Daredevil cover here, Daredevil number 241. And it's a beautiful Mike Zeck cover. And I got a copy signed by him right there. I just love this artwork. Mike Zeck is one of my favorite comic book artists of all
He's
time.
very clean.
Yeah. And just a beautiful cover there.
And he seems to do great with the street level heroes.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, like he's just doing so much work for Marvel during this period. It's you know, if you're really to get into collecting Mike Zeck, there's a lot of books to really focus on. But this book is sort of significant because this is also a Todd McFarlane interior book. It's one of Todd's earlier books at Marvel. He did the interior work on it. So it's a Todd McFarlane book. Again, signed copy Mike Zeck. Just love that cover.
Yeah, see, I'm not even a big like Punisher guy, but when Mike Zeck drew the Punisher, it was amazing.
Right? That limited series you're talking about? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he fantastic.
Yeah, and you know he was just like the Secret Wars book. You know, like there's just a lot of like really key books by Zeck. So,
and he's also got one of the best signatures in the game too.
Right, and I heard that he's not signing books anymore. Is that true?
Oh, I didn't hear that.
If so, that's very recent because he was just on the multiple. He might be taking a break, if nothing else, because he was just doing triple signing after triple signing tour for Secret Wars with the other
The
guys.
show coming out, huh?
Yeah.
Well, no, before during a pandemic, there were just an enormous number of signing opportunities where Mike Zeck was touring with I'm trying to remember who that was now. Caseta and I don't know, but 3 of the guys who worked on Secret Wars 8, and that was like they must have. That's why like we joke about it on Only Slabs that like to see a blue label unsigned Secret Wars 8 is like incredible because like every single one practically you see is triple signed now because there was just event after event during the pandemic that getting them triple signed everywhere you went. And so he could be exhausted from all that. I don't know whether he's done or not, but if I
Right.
were him, I'd be taking a break. Jeez.
Right?
Yeah, there's not only triple sign, but he's also did remarks on a
Beatty and
lot of them,
Shooter.
too.
Thank you. Psychedelic Comics. Yeah. It was Zach Beatty and Shooter going around.
Okay. Great. Yeah. That's true. You do see a lot of those books. And again, a lot of the remarks as well where Zeck or Shooter's doing remarks on them.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 8.
All right. Speaking of Mike Zeck, we have hang on here. I had that book. Just here we go. GI Joe number
nice.
42. This is also my exec cover. Beautiful Storm Shadow there, ready to slice someone in half. And it's a Zec cover, but what makes this book special to me is it's signed by Larry Hama, creator of the G.I. Joe characters that we know and love.
Who's
and
still writing today a lot.
Exactly. It's a comic book. He was inducted into the Comic Book Hall of Fame last year. And he's definitely somebody on my list of people to meet at a comic event. I'm really hoping he comes to the Northwest at some point, but I know it's harder for some of the older guys to travel and do a lot outside of where they reside. So
it's funny because when I think of him, I always think of Bill Mantlo as well, who was also writing all those properties back then because no one else at Marvel wanted to write them, so they gave them to guys like Larry Hama and Bill Mantlo, and then they knocked them out of the park, and they became, as in some cases, like with Rom, more popular than the toy,
right,
and Micronauts and stuff like that. G.I. Joe, the toys have always been the most popular, but that series is beloved, and like every other issue is a key appearance.
yeah.
Well, so many toys were turned out of those comics. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there's just first appearances, like through the first 60s books of this are just all first appearances of different.
It does seem toys. At least it gets to the point where it's at least two-thirds to or more at least. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like Star Wars today.
Right.
And it's multiple. But it's multiple. It's like this one is the first appearance of these 4 people. This is the first appearance of these 3 people, and this is the first appearance of these 5 people. And
now,
did you guys play Storm Shadow? Definitely, yeah. Okay. Storm Shadow is definitely my favorite Joe. Did you guys play with GI Joes growing up?
No, not.
Yeah, I wasn't the biggest in the GI Joes. I was having the Spider-Mans and Hulks and stuff.
I had all those big figures.
The older the original GI Joes.
Yeah, my friend had a bunch of. I had one Bullet Man. I don't know if you guys remember that Bullet Man. They had a silver head, and so I put him in a trash can lid with a little handle. Put him in there and fling it. He's riding a flying saucer. That's
that was like the 12-inch figure, right?
Yeah.
In my house, it was a Star Wars house, so we had all Star Wars figure stuff. I'd have to go to a friend's house to do the GI Joe, where he had a huge setup. So he had nothing but Joe stuff. So depending on what we wanted to play, we'd just go back and forth to each other's house and do whatever. But we watched the cartoon religiously.
Yeah.
It's funny. Everybody has a different favorite Joe. Like CJ saying Shipwreck was his. I think my buddy, like, what was his name? Beachhead?
Beachhead? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
just some of these obscure Joes that are people's favorites, right?
I don't think anybody named Bullet Man. Anyone named Bullet Man?
Honestly, I think if I had to name one, I'd be leaning towards some of the guys, somebody like Destro or something on the Cobra side. So,
yeah, Destro is really cool as an action
figure. E&J Joe, because you never go hungry. All right, number 9, sir.
All right, number 9.
Easy dad jokes aside.
So, speaking of Larry Hama, this is my favorite comic book of all time.
I like the way we're weaving through these.
I'm segueing into each one. And so, speaking of Larry Hama, this is no surprise for people who read G.I. Joe comics or people who love and appreciate Larry Hama, and that's this book. He did everything on this book. Yep, the silent issue. He did everything on this book. He did the cover, he did the interior work, he wrote the story. There's not a story that's written per se, but it's a story written through panels. There's no word bubbles.
Yeah, there's just no dialogue.
Yeah, there's words in it, but it's in the context of the story. It's written on objects, right, to let you know what's going on. But absolutely just brilliant. One of the most innovative comic book stories you'll ever read. And it introduces the relationship between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, that there's a relationship there. And of course, for anybody who's read this, it's
I wonder how many people picked that up off the shelves, got it home, went to go crack it, started opening it and thinking like, oh man, there's a printing error in here. There's no word. What's going on?
There's a second print of that too.
Yeah, there's multiple printings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like up to.
So like if you're in the stores buying it, you got to be careful. Look, make sure you're paying for the right cost for the right print.
Yep. Again, just a beautiful cover there. Larry Hama is, I think, more noted for his writing, obviously, in books because that's more prolific. But he was a pretty talented artist as well, which is featured in this book. What I love about that. So.
Yes, CJ, that's the way I remember her from the cartoon.
What cartoon you guys watch?
Right. I was just picking on CJ.
Fairness.
Just like Smurfette.
Well, Smurfette's motto, it takes a village.
Wow.
I just came up with that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gary B, everybody. Yeah, but he's available to do parties. Invite him. Just make sure it's away from a school.
Right? Hey, that joke writes itself.
Trev says.
Right.
Wow.
All right. Number 10. So.
Number 10. All right, number 10.
Show up.
Yeah, number 10 is
Same
really
Gary,
sort of
same Gary.
is a pair of books. So, speaking of, so here we have Snake Eyes scaling a tall building. So, speaking of tall buildings,
and that cover also always reminded me of that Punisher miniseries cover too, where he's pointing the gun into the window.
Yeah,
they're very similar.
Punisher 1, yeah. So speaking of tall buildings, we have two of the most iconic superheroes on their respective tall buildings. We have this sort of Gothic structure here in Gotham, and we have a sort of a more modern
in the light of day.
Yep. So it's two books, but I really look at it as one image. They're mirror images of Superman 204 and Batman 608, the second print. And these are copies I got signed and sketched by Jim Lee at Emerald City Comic Con in 2021.
Wow.
And I put a lot of thought into when I was going to meet Jim and in terms of the books I wanted to get signed. I came to the conclusion I want these two books signed. So if you can, I don't know if you can see in the light there, they're signed.
Yeah.
Let me get them out of the plastic here. You can see a little better. But they're not only signed, they're actually sketched as well. And what I did was I came up with a clever way to get the sketch designation. I asked him to write Dark Knight there and Man of Steel there with the Superman S, the chest logo, and the Bat chest logos. And so when he signs like that, you get CGC recognizes that as a sketch. And so I have... these are like 101s pretty much. A signed sketch cover.
I hear that Jim Lee guy's an up-and-comer.
Well, that's how he will beat me right there with that cut piece right there.
Yeah, feel free to...
That show won't be about beating each other. It's just about sharing the love of the artist.
He beat me.
See, Rob, earlier I suggested, because they're both Jim Lee fans, that they have a show with each other where they each show their 10 favorite Jim Lee covers and see how many they have in common.
Yeah, Jim Lee is such... I mean, I grew up collecting him, loving him, and just over the years, I've been able to follow his many permutations throughout his career. He ended up starting at Marvel, then went and helped start Image, and then he kind of came back to Marvel to do some work on books there, and eventually made his way to DC, sold Wildstorm to DC and started working for them. And now he's the VP, or he's the chief creative officer there at DC. And so for me as a Korean American, to see Jim Lee just do all the great things he's doing in the industry is just really inspirational and motivational. And that's what I got to share with him. Just like, hey, I'm a big fan of yours. It's just great to see what you do for Korean American, representation and what you do for the community. So that was a really special moment.
Yeah, I know he's arrived. I mean, he's the guy that when you sit there and you see if there's a 30 title, whatever event it is, there's five or more covers coming out, and you don't know which one's going to be the one you should pick up. It's going to be the hit cover. If there's a Jim Lee cover in a lot, that's
can
the one
never
you
go
want to pick
wrong.
up because that invariably is the one that's going to be the one that's going to have some value to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jim Lee or Adam Hughes, one of those two.
True. Yeah.
And like you and I were talking in the back before we went live, what a lot of people don't realize is some of these big '90s artists like Jim Lee that made it big, they were doing fill-in issues for the big two in the '70s and early '80s. Some
Yeah.
of them, like we're talking like Jim Lee, like did a few issues of Conan and a few issues of this and a few issues of that, just doing fill-in work, just
Right.
to get work.
Yeah.
So
That's
I am
great.
assuming too you have his first X-Men cover.
Yeah. I have his I got that signed as well. So his first work on X-Men. I think he got his start on a book for the official Handbook of Marvel Universe. It's I think a later series in that where he did a Book of the Dead. He did one panel in that, and that's his sort of the first official work in for Marvel, not in comic books, but for Marvel. And then he did Alpha Flight. He started doing Punisher War Journal, and then eventually made his way to the X-Men books.
Right, and then the rest was history.
The rest is history. Yeah, I talked about Neil Adams earlier, and Neil Adams was such a prolific artist throughout the Bronze Age. He really kind of transformed into a cover artist because he sold books. And it's a marketing tool, right? You just put great art on a book and it'll sell. And that's really kind of what Jim Lee is now for DC. He's not really doing a lot of actual work. He's just doing a lot of covers. And like Rob mentioned, if you want to sell a book or if you're going to pick up a book, you should probably target the Jim. I'm sure
You'll see it. You'll see it even today. I mean, Marvel even will do stuff, and then they'll pull out some old Jim Lee art that they have to make a cover to make it for their special events, so they can have a Jim Lee cover or something. But I think he's been one of the things that I read he was doing a project while he's been doing all this stuff over DC is overseeing basically the Bible, the DC Bible, essentially of every character design for that DC has, and so that's. You got to imagine that's when you know you're the guy when they say, "Oh, we want you to create the character reference for every single DC character for all the future illustrators to come."
Right. One thing he will be infamously or maybe famously known for is he's the guy who drew Superman without the red underpants. I don't know what your thoughts are on that either way, but I am for red underpants. I think.
Well,
Superman
certainly Batman is too, because I mean, how else are you going to survive coming through the atmosphere if you don't have underpants?
Exactly.
Exactly. Do you have a Jim Lee's Conan cover?
I do. Yeah, I have all three of his Conan covers.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say everyone knows the one, but you and I were talking. There's a couple, and the other ones I think are better than the one that everybody knows.
Yep, the earlier ones are definitely better than the one featuring Red Sonja, but
because that one, I mean, I don't know if you agree with me. The Todd McFarlane Conan cover and that one Jim Lee cover, they both feel rushed.
Oh yeah,
they have like a rushed element to them. Where his
Uh-huh.
other Conan covers, they're just a solid piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think we got through the 10, and now we're on the
11th with an extended story or a personal story attached.
Yeah,
whatever it happens to be.
And this is again fortuitous that Nam Yan Hyung is in the chat or in the panel because he and I were together when we met these two gentlemen virtually. And again, this is sort of, I know I featured 2 books for the 10th. This is also a pair of books. Nam Yan Young and I, during the early part, right around this time last year, had connected online, and we decided we'd launch this interview show, and we targeted some Asian American creators. So, speaking of Jim Lee, just one of the best in the game, who's an Asian American artist, we also connected with John Boy Myers, who's half Vietnamese, as well as David Nakayama, who's half Japanese. And these two guys are just probably the biggest murderers of cover game in comics right now, right?
Nakayama is the hottest thing in slice of bread right this moment. He's
Let me get this right. You guys had David Nakayama on, and I didn't receive a David Nakayama signed Red Sonja cover from you two. That's all I'm getting out of this conversation right now.
That cover is amazing, isn't it?
I got one.
That Red Sonja cover. It's beautiful.
Okay, I said,
I'm just picking on you, David. He did some great Red Sonja covers.
Yeah.
he did. That I had to get that one. I had to get
Yeah. So
I'm just writing down that I got a vendetta against you guys now. Can't forget it.
When we interviewed both of these guys, this book had just come out. I think War of the Bounty Hunters.
yes,
number
Alpha. I think
3. Yeah.
yeah.
And again, we just asked what they were working on, and they're like, "Oh, we have this book coming out." And they both mentioned that, I mentioned to them that we're both big Star Wars fans, and they were gracious enough to send us these books
Nice.
that they had worked on for Boba Fett or the Bounty Hunter series. And I really like this John Boy Myers cover, because the story he explained about this cover is this is a post-disintegration scene. So Boba Fett has just disintegrated somebody and is walking through their ashes, and it's just such a...
So those are all dry blood. There.
It's just embers. It's just like
He not only
embers.
disintegrates you, he scatters you afterward.
Exactly.
No, I'm not done.
And what's going to be exciting is John Boy Myers is coming to Emerald City Comic Con, and again, Nam Yang Yang and I have tickets to go to that event together. So it'll be really nice to connect with John Boy in person this time. We're going to have video. We're going to feature interviews with him, get some books signed, maybe even commission a sketch. So it should be just a really memorable event and time when that happens, which is coming up in March. So in a few months here.
Yeah,
Nice.
those gentlemen, John Boy Meyer, he sent us sketchbooks, and that cover. Dave Nakayama, he told us when his books are coming, so we pre-ordered it, and so anyway, that's great guys.
Yeah. Great guys. What I love about Nakayama also is he doesn't charge a lot for his signed books. He has them on his website, and he's selling books for about $25, for a signed copy. So, and that's unheard of.
Yeah, I think I just looked the other day, because I've been getting a bunch of emails about a bunch of stuff, and it's really only about $10 to $15 more than what if you were getting them raw, like on Unknown, because a lot of those are on Unknown or whatever. So
yeah,
common, you pay that much to sign it anyway. So
yep, you can get them slabbed as well. You have the option to slab them when you buy them off their site. So
I'm going to reach out to you two after, because I just had an idea which I'm going to approach you guys with.
Okay, great.
All right, so let's get to your spec pick, Otaku. See what you got.
All right.
On the specs.
Yeah, I'm hoping Rob hops back on, because I'm interested to get his thoughts on this as well.
We can fill a minute till Rob's back. What's coming up for you two?
Oh, okay, yeah. Dominic, why don't you start?
Oh, tomorrow I have my 400 sub giveaway event, 9 p.m. Right after the comic event. I was going to have it at 7. Then I saw Comic Base having it, and I'm going, no. So I moved my slot to 9 p.m. So that's that. And then Thursday, I'm going to have old folks talk with Sleepy Reader, and the we want to talk about our favorite comedies, Sleepy Reader and Metarog. And so that's, and Friday I'm gonna have a comic creator I just met at the Baltimore Con. He's gonna come up. It's really hard to pronounce his name. Ono or something. Anyway, he creates comic books. He creates a Korean historical figure comic books. So I had to get hold of him and do a
Yeah,
feature.
it's really
so
intriguing that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
He's published his own book. That's his own book. So
he published Korean books, Korean historical figures, and so I've got 10 books from him, and I'm gonna feature him on Friday. So there's three events coming up.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, later tonight I'm gonna unbox this. Speaking of the guy who's gonna be on Nam Yan Hyung channel, this is from Metarog, Roger. It's an AOK package. We did a Secret Santa thing where we exchanged some books. I sent him some books, he sent me. So I'm gonna unbox what he sent me later on this evening. That should be a good time.
I watched his. You sent him some good stuff.
Oh yeah.
I think I didn't comment on that one though because I was listening and watching at work.
I do that sometimes.
While doing payroll, I needed something to not make me fall asleep.
All right, I guess we'll get to my last.
Rob's here,
book.
so we could do your spec pick.
My spec pick. So
I feel targeted by that "don't fall asleep" thing.
Well, we were picking on you before you made your show entrance.
Oh yeah, when I was asleep. Yeah, that's fair enough.
I'm sure Rob is doing his old man snoozing right now.
Exactly. The recliner sucked me in, and
I couldn't imitate Rob though. I couldn't imitate Rob. Not enough facial hairs.
Well, I had my Red Namen emergency phone, just like the Pat phone, and I just dialed him up and he popped on.
Awesome.
yeah. Sorry.
All right, go ahead, Otaku. Sorry, sir.
So I just featured Boba Fett covers on my last, and as you all know, Star Wars is just probably the epitome of science fiction in our culture, and that segues into my last book, which is a pre-code science fiction book. It's a golden age book.
You surprised me, Otaku Yang. Wow.
Oh yeah, did I? Okay, yeah. This is a key book because it's Weird Science number 10. It was published or edited by Al Feldstein. Written by Al Feldstein, edited, published by Bill Gaines, the son of Max Gaines, who started Education Comics, and also illustrated by the great Wally Wood. All of them are legendary, Hall of Fame comic creators. And again, this is just a great pre-code science fiction book.
Helmets, rocket ship. I love it.
Yeah.
You will give it to me.
So it's a pretty beat up copy. It's low grade, but it presents
book is just about.
Yeah, it presents really well. And so what's great about this book, so why this is a spec book is there's been a massive increase in pre-code horror books, which I'm sure everyone's aware of.
Oh yeah,
and with good reason, right? It's just one of those like historic key cultural events. They had a huge congressional hearing, and out of it came the Comic Code Authority, and it transformed the comic book industry. It was such a transformative historical event. So that focus on pre-code horror is not only warranted, it's just sent the prices of these books skyrocketing. And I think what you're eventually going to see is that attention as that trends downward, you're going to see the attention focus on science fiction books from the era, because culturally we're talking about in terms of what we value as a culture, maybe horror is on the darker side of our cultural psyche, but definitely science fiction, especially with a lot of the modern, our generation of collectors. Science fiction is really the genre that pushed.
Well, and science fiction and horror marry very well together too.
Oftentimes they cross over.
And
Yeah.
that's what this is. This is a book that inspired Ridley Scott's Alien. It's actually the exact same story. They go to a planet, and they discover aliens there that kind of pop out as different, like human form, and it's what inspired that movie Alien. So it's sort of the first appearance of the alien prototype in comics. So who knows? It may or may not happen, but in terms of I think where collecting focus should be, that's not a bad bet to make if you can afford some of these books.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I would argue that the speculation's already there. As a guy who's collecting bubble helmet, rocket ships, and robot covers from the Golden and Silver Age, a lot of this stuff. I mean, there's a fair amount of it that is affordable, but depending upon the stuff that's got the good covers and the key titles, like those EC books. Those EC books, man, they're $200 a pop each in poor condition every single day, twice on Sunday.
Right.
And if you can get the good condition ones, it's a miracle you found them, because they're all in the hands of private collectors who don't want to get rid of them. And when they do,
has them.
When they do, they want a lot of money for them. So yeah, I mean, I can't believe that I've paid close to $1,000 for a comic book that is a 2.0 because it's pre-code sci-fi, or it's got a robot on the cover or something. And it's
right.
Like, that's just what it is for some of them.
Where were you in terms of collecting the pre-code horror?
I don't give a shit about horror.
See, I'm
a sci-fi guy all the way.
Right.
I'm also a sci-fi guy.
Yeah,
and my horror together are my favorite.
Yeah,
I don't mind some of it together. Like, I mean, but Aliens isn't my favorite of sci-fi movies, right? Predator's not my. I don't even consider it a sci-fi movie, even though it is. But I like more fantasy sci-fi type stuff, which is just.
Well, and the reason I like them together, Rob, is you tend to get more of a story with horror if there's sci-fi elements to it. Because I'm not
agree to disagree, but there's definitely room in the genres for multiples there. I mean, it's ironic because I could care less about your fantasy genre, but I like my sci-fi fantasy. I don't really. You like horror. I don't really care as much about sci-fi horror. We're really kind of split on this, you and I.
We are,
but there's room for both of us in the conversation.
I was going to say, but that's how big those genres are, right? There's many elements to them, and it's great.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I think though, if you look at what resonates in pop culture, it's definitely like we've leaned more toward science fiction for sure. Just looking at Star Trek, Star Wars, the communities that those two contents have, it's incredible.
Well, people like to look to the future and try to, or a lot of these things you're projecting certain elements in. You put it to take it into a different time period allows it to sometimes be more acceptable to discuss certain issues. But then also in some of these things, when you're doing like the horror and some of these other things, those allow you to tell stories that tap into certain feelings that evoke certain feelings from a reader or a viewer or something that are primal. That are universal throughout humanity. The fear of the dark and the fear of being eaten by a larger creature, or whatever else. Or in the case of Aliens, as I was just watching the other day, intentionally they used a lot of phallus symbolism throughout that movie and stuff, intentionally to play the fear on male viewers of being raped.
I didn't realize that.
I was actually watching. I just watched something the other day. We were interviewing with the set designer and a lot of the designer stuff. So they everything that they did on that was intentionally done from that aspect.
Interesting. Like the alien design you're talking about.
From the alien design to the way the face hugger was planted in your throat to
Ooh.
the eruption out and every the tentacle, everything that was done was intentionally done to evoke some semblance of that in order to play, because that was a big fear amongst a lot of people, and so it was something that they could drive through. And just even go back and look at the original Alien stuff. There's all you see the portals in the ship; they're giant 60-foot vaginas and stuff on the ship. And things. It was all done intentionally, 100%.
Well, and
wow.
Giger had his own designs, which he had his own mind going on, which bled right into that stuff. That's why it's so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
So that only one survived is female. That's the only one.
It was intentionally a role reversal.
Yeah. And Sigourney Weaver is just so sexy in that movie, the original Aliens and the second one. But man,
CJ, the aliens don't want that stomach ache from you, buddy.
Yeah, was that it?
He said, "The hit a large creature tries to eat me."
So, Rob, are you into Star Trek as well, or just strictly a Star Wars guy?
No, I've watched Star Trek as well. I find myself, I usually say I'm more of a Star Wars guy, but they're very different types of storytelling, and I like them both. When I sit down and watch a bunch of Star Trek, I thoroughly enjoy it as much as I do sometimes some of the shows that people don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I was an Enterprise fan. I just got done getting mostly caught up on Discovery finally, and I enjoy it. I know a lot of people
Forbidden Planet, Rob.
Forbidden
Planet.
Forbidden Planet, love Forbidden Planet with Leslie Nielsen back in the day when Leslie Nielsen wasn't all yucks. Yeah, Forbidden Planet is a classic. Love that film.
Yeah.
CJ is my first super chat.
All those old robot 50s.
I'm not here for the one.
But are you watching the reboot of Next Generation? How is that if you are?
I'm really far behind on the more recent stuff that Paramount's been going because I don't have Paramount, and so it's more of like with Discovery. I've just been buying a season at a time because I'd rather do that than pay for another streaming service that I barely use.
Yeah,
and so I haven't gotten it. So I'm behind on a lot of that because it takes me to get into a lull where I don't have anything else to watch on the streaming services I do stream. Yeah. Or at least nothing that or haven't identified things that I want to watch, and where I then go, okay, I want to do something else. Let me go do this. So it'll be a while for me to catch up. And then I do a chunk. Like I said, I just did like the first 3 seasons of Discovery during this summer. So it's now I still have the 4th season, and I have to go back and watch the Picard stuff, and I have to watch the Strange New Worlds, and I have to watch, I guess, what Prodigy or something's coming out or something. I don't know. So that'd be interesting. Yeah. I have fun with it. Buck Rogers stuff.
When they made the announcement, I think it was at San Diego Comic-Con that the Next Generation cast was coming. All the cast members, the whole cast was coming back for Picard season 3. I was just like, wow, no way. And that they released the preview for that, and I was just like, no way, I got to see this. And then I haven't been able to catch it. I'm just interested to see what the fans' reactions are to that series. So
I don't know. I know I get excited whenever I see Jonathan Frakes as a director on something. And it's funny because that was one of those things I remember when Next Generation came out. I remember going like, God, this initially, I don't like this. This is not, because I had watched all the original stuff, and this wasn't the original. It was very different from a tempo and not only the cosmetics and everything else. And then eventually, though, you got into it and you go like, okay, yeah, no, you know what? I really kind of dig, especially since the first season, even they admit was a little rough. And it got good, right? And then Deep Space Nine, it was the same thing. When it came out, I'm like, oh, who could watch this? They got no spaceship. But then eventually they got to the point where Sisko became transformed back into Hawk. Shave your head, grow goatee, boys and girls. And all of a sudden, Deep Space Nine became good. And if you don't believe me, go back and watch.
I love
Cisco has hair on his head and a shaved face. Not good. Shaved head, goatee.
Good. No, Deep Space Nine was Also amazing series. I'm sad that had to end, but yeah, that
Yeah.
was great.
You know, do you guys ever get into those like one-off seasons of like sci-fi shows they had? They had one called Earth 2 that I absolutely
Yeah,
loved, and I
Earth
was
2.
so disappointed when it only lasted a season.
Oh
Had
no.
Clancy Brown on it, who's fantastic in everything he's in.
Yeah, I had one with there was one that was on Fox called Almost Human. That was like a buddy cop movie of a cop who hates robots and gets partnered up with a robot, of course, right? And gotta solve crime and whatnot. But it was very cool. I thought and enjoyed it a lot. I mean, because I love things like that, the iRobot stuff and old Asimov
That's
stuff, and
rough. Hmm.
um, just have a lot of fun. Even the Will Smith iRobot I like, so it's
Rob, did you ever read? Um,
did I ever read?
did you ever read?
Occasionally. I
Did
tried
you
not
ever
to.
read the book Friday?
I'm sure I did not.
Robert
Okay, yes.
Hyland book.
Huh?
Robert Hyland book.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's my favorite Robert Heinlein book. It's so good,
Yeah.
and she's a robot, Rob.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great book. I love.
Is
I love
that
his
the
writing.
big? Is that the big reveal at the end that she's a robot?
No, she's a robot throughout the
Oh,
whole
okay.
thing.
Okay.
I got to reread that. I haven't read that in like maybe 20 years, but it
I-
still sticks out.
Yeah, I've said
I-
before, reading is not the easiest thing for me. So it's I don't read as much as I'd like.
But it's only like 2,400 pages, Rob.
Oh,
No,
is that
just,
all?
no, just kidding. No, just-
I'll put it right up there to do.
he'll finish it by retirement.
Yeah, the Strangeland is awesome too. Strangeland.
Yep.
I think there's about 2 books that I've maybe read that are anywhere close to that kind of size, and one of them was Shogun.
The Great and Secret Show by Magica by Clive Barker is my favorite long read.
Oh,
But Clive Barker is my favorite author. Him and Robert E. Howard are neck and neck.
Mhm.
Sorry, we're off topic now.
We
That
went
was great.
completely off the rails.
Although I will say that there was a great collection of sci-fi pulps and stuff at the show I was at earlier this week, and it was real difficult not to buy a crap ton of them.
Oh yeah, I think yeah. I mean, I can see. I think I will be looking at some of these books when I go to Emerald City Comic Con just to see if I can pick them up, on the cheap and see what we can do there. But yeah, I think there's real investment value and value in these books just because, like we talked about, the science fiction genre in comic books is ever present. It's stronger than ever. So
You made a full circle here. You made a full circle. And we talked about that and like, are we getting superhero fatigue? And wow, you just surprised us with that science fiction book. Awesome job, bud.
thanks.
Yes, I do, lady. Yeah, and we've had conversations, Caroline.
The comic book
He was getting
is-
escalated pretty quick.
Right? I don't think she was here for my Smurfette joke earlier. Oh, all right, but guys, fantastic show. Otaku, thank you for coming on. Naman, thanks for picking up the red emergency phone and filling in for
Thank
Rob
you for
until he
inviting-
woke up.
I love doing this.
Yeah, it was great. My pleasure. And again, just looking forward to continuing to engage with you guys and following you and all the great content you put out.
Well,
Thanks.
and
thanks for being-
if you're game, I'd like to get you on in the hot seat in the future too. And we'll do a proper interview show on you.
Sure, that works. Yep.
We'll get Naman back on that one to help interview you.
Great.
But I want to thank
you made
everyone.
some dirty secrets, right?
Right? I want to thank everyone in the chat for turning out to support these great people. Their links are all in the description. Naman, I'll add yours after. Thank you, CJ and Sleepy Reader, for giving me my first ever super chats. I just got them activated, so thank you guys. I appreciate it. Otaku, great books, man. I was so, like I said, I was really excited and happy when you accepted to come on. You didn't disappoint. Great books. We all expected Jim Lee, but the stuff that you showed of Jim Lee was exceptional. So thank you very much. A lot of fun. Rob, we want to thank you for waking up and coming in and joining us.
You should call me sometime.
Right? I was not going to wake you up. I'm like, because I know I know what happens. I know that you are busy at work, and the last thing I'm going to do is disrupt you.
The worst part was I was off this afternoon running errands. So
It
That
only
happens.
takes a moment to sit in a chair at our age, Rob.
I
I
know.
understand this as well.
Oh, we got some
You know what? I'm
Canadian
just
dollar
going to
too.
rest here.
When people super chat you
Super
crazy.
chatty. Super
No.
chatty.
There you go.
Oh, thank you, TM Nerdy. All right, my third super chat.
This is
Yeah, but
first Canadian
this
dollar.
one's in Canadian dollars though, so
This
it's
is
really
Canadian first Canadian dollar.
Oh, K-pop, how you doing, K-pop? Oh, K-pop, you missed a great show. Otaku was great. Rob woke up and joined us. Naman joined us.
true story.
Yeah, we had
And we had
K-pop
some
on our
great
channel this past weekend. Great show.
That was fun. That
Go
was
check
really
that.
fun.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
lot of
I want
fun.
to get her on the 1011 at some point because I want to see what
Yeah.
books she has.
Yeah.
She's yet to accept. So, if there's anyone out there that can twist K-pop's arm and get her on the show, just gently apply that pressure if you could.
Yeah. Opas want you on the show, so
Just allow her to show some of her K-pop CDs, and she'll come on. I bet you.
She can show anything she likes on the show. This show's about the collector and getting in the community, getting to know them. So, and it was great. We got to know a little bit more about you tonight, Otaku, and it was tons of fun, man. And hopefully you'll come back on the show. Well, eventually I'm going to start having people come on for second and thirds, like Rob does on his show.
great.
But I still have a bunch of people filling out that haven't even had first appearances yet. So I'm trying to cover first appearances
Yes.
first. But everyone that's been on is going to get second invites. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate everyone coming out, and I appreciate my co-host. Thank you guys. And for those of you catching us on the rewind, thank you so much. Nothing but good people on the show. We get to meet the nicest people in the community, and they share their time with us. You can't ask for anything better. And until next time, guys, keep it casual.